Today, I'll be attempting to beat a Pokemon Scarlet hardcore Nuzlocke using only Fire-type starters, and in a Nuzlocke, if a Pokemon faints, it's considered dead. And amongst the large list of boss battles in Scarlet, there's a good number that absolutely counter the Fire typing, and with only 9 encounters, this is going to be tough. Of course, my starter choice is Fuecoco, who might just be about the goofiest Fire-type starter ever created. Don't let those mindless eyes deceive you though, because Coco will grow up to be an apex predator, killing everything in sight. But much like real life crocodilians, Coco will have to start off by feeding on some weak bugs, which makes Katie the perfect opponent. And while her first 2 Pokemon were easily one-shot by Terra boosted Incinerate, her ace Teddy Ursa has a lot more bulk. So after hitting a nasty Fury Swipes, it's able to survive with red HP from another Incinerate. Since Fuecoco has stumpy heckin' legs, he's outsped and brought down to red HP from a critical hit Fury Cutter. But with such little HP remaining, there was no way Teddy Ursa was going to avoid becoming a protein-rich meal for Coco, earning us an easy first badge. After every badge, I'll be allowed to pick a new fire starter to join me on my adventure. And with the Stony Cliff Titan next on the list, the choice was easy. So welcome KFC. KFC's serious disposition makes him the perfect foil to Coco, keeping him and his silly antics under control. With his fighting typing, KFC is perfect for taking on the fights that the pure fire types can't handle, which brings us to the rock type Clorp. And phase 1 is over after 2 rounds of double kicks, and well, phase 2 was more or less the same story. A combination of KFC furiously shoving his freshly fried feet into Clorp's face and Shelter spitting a steady stream of water into the wound easily defeats the giant beast, earning us another badge and Coco his first evolution. You can tell that KFC is just so proud of how far his little bro has grown in such short time. With a new badge comes an equally silly yet powerful team member, King the Pig Knight, who is ready to show off in front of his new fire-type brothers as he leads the charge against Brassius. And well, a combination of Terra-boosted flame charges and a whole lot to prove, King just runs through Brassius for another easy badge. This is when the difficulty skyrockets, especially the Sky Titan, which can potentially destroy my team, especially with 2 fighting types. So I decided the next starter was going to be Mr. Mittens, the Cat. With its hidden ability Intimidate and its egg move Parting Shot, his shoulders will be the foundation on which this team stands on to reach the top of Paldea. Since he's the undisputed supportive GOAT, I lead with Mr. Mittens, who intimidates Bombardier, lowering its attack stat. He then hits a crit fake out, causing it to flinch while getting in some chip damage. Bombardier does hit a pretty soft pluck before Mittens uses Parting Shot, lowering the bird's attack even further while safely bringing in King. Even at -2 attack, Bombardier's pluck still does nasty damage, but King isn't mucking around either as Flame Charge takes down half of its HP, so after dodging a fatal crit on Rock Throw, another Flame Charge takes us into phase 2. This fight is brutal as I'm not able to heal between phases. Thankfully we do have Arven's help though. A crit fake out and smackdown combo just barely leaves Bombardier above half HP. Mittens then tanks a rock throw and parting shots into KFC as the Titan's HP falls into the yellow from Knackley's smackdown. KFC is a professional when it comes to fried chicken, so after another smackdown oils it up, KFC can deep fry it with a flame charge. I can now add George the Monferno to the team, a pretty versatile mixed attacker, but with his Iron Fist ability, I'll probably be sticking to making use of his physical prowess. And with that, I now have 3 fighting types, so Giacomo shouldn't really be a problem. His lead Pawnyard is 4 times weak to fighting type moves, so I thought it'd be an easy OHKO with KFC. But it actually outspeeds and strikes KFC with a super effective aerial ace for half of his HP. A double kick and retaliation gets the job done, but I was very surprised to see this thing outrun KFC. Giacomo then brings in his Starmobile, but with one of my fighters already below half HP, I'm feeling a bit less confident. When the light of hope begins to fade, you can always count on Mr. Mittens to bring the sun back in your life. Mittens dodges a metal sound and leaves the field with a parting shot, lowering both its attack and special attack as I bring in King for free. A metal sound is pretty scary, but a brick break is chunking the Starmobile. I decide to not take any risks, and Mr. Mittens enters the field once again. He's ready to go on the offensive, but where he excels in supportive power, he falls short when it comes to dealing out damage. So after a second round of double kicks, he parting shots back into King, and with 2 more brick breaks, the battle is over, which means Sabrina the Braxian joins the team. The team was definitely lacking when it came to special attacks, so Sabrina is a huge addition to the Firestarter squad and will be essential for being Iono. Before that though, we have a date with Nimona, but honestly it ends pretty quickly thanks to Swords Dance Monferno, who just tears through her whole team. Well, it's time to take on Iono, and she's honestly a huge step up from the previous gym leaders. With 4 Pokemon and half of those being fully evolved, this was going to be a tough fight. But Sabrina, the teenage Firefox, was more than ready for the challenge. She sets up the Sun against Wattrel as it fires back with a weak Spark, but with the Sun up and a Terra Boost, Heat Wave is extremely powerful and easily one-shots her dumb little bird. Bellibolt is one tanking monster, but even this radioactive avocado can't handle the heat as it also gets one-tapped by a Heat Wave. Unfortunately, this strategy isn't 100% reliable, and Heat Wave's 95% accuracy comes back to bite us as Luxio avoids the attack and fires back with a Spark, bringing poor Sabrina below half HP. It couldn't outrun death for long though, as a second Heat Wave connects for another one-shot. This leaves Iono with her ace Mismagius, and this thing is extremely fast, annoying, and hits harder than my dad. Since Sabrina is fairly low, I swap her out for Mr. Mittens, who gets confused on the switch. But Mittens is a man who was born and raised to protect his family, so he breaks through and fake outs for tiny chip damage. A Hex on the next turn chunks Mittens pretty hard, but he's able to land a parting shot, lowering its special attack and safely brings in Coco. Mismagius then confuses poor Coco, as if his intelligence wasn't already on the lower end of the scale, and of course he hits himself. A Hex then does insane damage, but Coco retaliates with a Snarl, and while it doesn't do much damage, it does lower its special attack even further. With this drop, Hex is doing a lot less damage, so Coco can land one more Snarl, bringing the Light Bulb to -3 special attack. With it severely weakened, I bring in KFC, and Hex barely tickles him, but of course she uses Confuse Ray again, and KFC hits himself. I expect this from the dim-witted Coco, or even King, but come on KFC. With it being at -3, I was pretty confident that KFC could survive another Hex, but when you fly too close to the sun, you burn your chicken, and Mismagius crits a Hex, killing KFC. It's sad to see such a core member of the family fall to such a stupid mistake on my end. Well, nothing we can do about it now. King comes in and with a couple of brick breaks ends the battle, but not without losing one of our core members. But it was definitely a wake-up call that even though our team is powerful, we still need to be careful, especially with a huge threat around the corner. Thankfully, we don't have to go without a full team for long, as I replace KFC with Nova the Charmeleon. And I've been pretty vocal about my distaste for the Charizard line, but god damn it, Nova puts all his stats and charisma, and he'll become one of my favourites from the run. Bulbasaur still clears though. Well, there's no better way to test our new firepower than against Mela. Her lead Torkoal sets up the Sun with Drought, which benefits us both, as a Sun boosted Heat Wave from Sabrina almost kills Torkoal, and its Flame Wheel barely leaves a scratch on her, and another Heat Wave finishes it off, which brings in her Starmobile. I quickly hit it with the Intimidate and Parting Shot combo from Mr. Mittens, leaving it at -2 attack, which should let Sabrina comfortably fire off 2 more Sun boosted Heat Waves, leaving it nice and low. Sabrina is in danger of a crit though, so I switch back into Mr. Mittens, who Parting Shots into Nova, who can finish the battle off with some Dragon Breaths. And well, do I really need to mention how easy Earthworm is? I mean, I press one move, dead, it's gone, it's dead. It was easy. Well, from the easiest fight straight to the hardest, as now we have to take on Kofu, the Water Gym Leader. This matchup is brutal for my fire types, but of course, I came up with a cheeky little plan. I just hope it's enough to survive this matchup. Kofu leads with Veluza, and since it's a physical attacker, I lead with Mr. Mittens, who lowers its attack stat with Intimidate. Mittens then sets up a Sunny Day, and tanks an Aqua Cutter like it's nothing. A Parting Shot then lowers its attack even further, bringing in Sabrina, and I've taught her the powerful grass type move Solar Beam, which normally needs 2 turns to charge, but thanks to the Sun we can use it straight away, and with a held Miracle Seed it's an easy one-shot. A Headbutt from Wugtrio does leave Sabrina way below half HP, but since she didn't flinch she can retaliate with the one-shot. And I honestly wasn't sure if Crabominable was going to be one-shot, but it wasn't safe to switch, so I just had to pray that Braixen is strong enough. So I press Solar Beam, and she does it. It's a clean knockout, and my little fire squad has beaten one of their toughest matchups with 0 deaths. With a level cap of 36, I can now evolve King into the powerful Ember, who will be essential for the upcoming battle against Atticus. To ensure victory though, I lead with one of the newest members of the team, Boots the Reboot, who is almost as good at supporting as Mr. Mittens. He avoids the incoming Sucker Punch by using Agility, boosting his speed by 2 stages. It then tries to Sucker Punch him again, but it fails this time because he boosts his attack with Sword Stance. A second Agility then brings his speed to +4, and it finally lands a Toxic, but a Petra Berry cures it straight away, so I get to max speed on the next turn as it reapplies the poison, but after all this setup, I can Baton Pass into King, who now has max speed and +2 attack. Atticus now doesn't stand a chance, as King proceeds to one-shot the rest of his team. Not gonna lie, that felt a bit brutal, but Atticus is such a pain that I had to do it to him. I then evolved George into the powerful Infernape, who is perfect for the battle against Larry. George sets up a Sword Stance as Kamala makes him drowsy with Yawn. A Dragon Punch can then easily one-shot it as George falls asleep, but a held Lumberry wakes him up. The Dunsparce is pretty tanky, but a +2 Drain Punch is still enough to one-shot it, and even though his A-Star Raptor lowers George's attack to +1, it's still enough for a Drain Punch to Oko, winning a super easy battle. And well, Nemona suffers the same fate, as George also just sweeps her whole team. With a battle against Rhyme just around the corner, I decide it's time to grind up, so Mr. Mittens can evolve into the Dark-type Incineroar, and if you thought Mittens was OP before, just you wait, this thing is a monster. And Nova also evolves into Game Freak's favourite child, Charizard. Nova starts the battle by almost one-shotting Bayonet and breaking Mimikyu's disguise with Heat Wave, and Mr. Mittens tries to set up the sun, but it fails because I guess it's snowing, I don't know man. But we don't need the sun boost as Flamethrower from Nova destroys Mimikyu, and Mittens finishes off Bayonet's low HP. This leaves Rhyme with our last 2 Pokemon, but Flamethrower one-shots Toxicity and Darkest Lariat one-shots Houndstone, making this probably one of the easiest Rhyme battles I've ever had. Nova wasn't done yet though, as he also just straight up one-taps the Quake Titan with an Air Slash. It then takes 3 Air Slashes to finish off phase 2. So maybe you guys weren't lying about Charizard being strong. Well, it's the late game now, so it's time to stop mucking around and evolve the rest of my fire starters. The biggest evolution is definitely Coco evolving into his final form. He started this adventure as a goofy little faux Coco, and he suffered loss and a lot of growth, but now he's an apex predator and one of the most broken fire types, Skeledirge. The plan against Tulip was simple. I wanted to sweep a Coco, but there was one thing Coco lacks, and that's speed, so I lead the battle with Mr. Mittens, who can lower Farigiraf's attack stat by 2 stages with an Intimidate Parting Shot combo. This allows me to bring in Boots, who I forgot to teach Agility to, but that's okay because I can get the same result with 2 Flame Charges, and with +2 speed, I Baton Pass into Coco, who is ready to start the carnage. A Torch Song is able to finish off Farigiraf, while also giving Skeledirge +1 special attack. Esparathra then gets one-shot by Shadow Ball, and since I want another boost to my special attack, I Terra Coco and take down Gardevoir with 2 Torch Songs, leaving Coco at +3 when Tulip's Ace Florges enters the field. This thing is a special tank, but +3 is more than enough for the one-shot, winning our 7th gym badge. The last gym leader uses ice types, and it's so easy that I can finally use Roy the Typhlosion, who sweeps Grusha's whole team with Terra boosted Eruption. This makes for a pretty anticlimactic final gym, but there's like 12 bosses to go still. We're in the endgame now, and Ortega is the one to welcome us to this stage of the game, and his main threat is actually his leader Azumarill, a water fairy type, so to counter it, Mr. Mitten sets up the sun, as Aqua Tail still hits for pretty decent chip, before Mittens can Parting Shot into Sabrina on the next turn, and even at -2, and in the sun, an Aqua Tail still chunks her for a quarter of a HP bar. But with the sun up, Solar Beam doesn't need to charge, but Azumarill lives on legit 1 HP. Thankfully, it just wastes its turn by using Charm, so another Solar Beam finishes it off. Dashband then comes in, and it's pretty tricky thanks to its ability Well-Baked Body, which makes it immune to fire type moves. Since this thing hits surprisingly hard, I have to switch into Mittens, who can intimidate it to lower its attack stat, and then fake it out to do some small chip while flinching the Baked Doggo. On the next turn, it's able to land a Play Rough, but it barely tickles Mittens, and a Parting Shot brings its attack down to -2. I decided I wanted another cycle of Intimidate and Fake Out, So I bring in Sabrina and switch right back to Mittens and another fake out Chip's dash bun, and after a parting shot it's now down to -4. So it's more than safe to bring in Nova, and 2 air slashes finally finish it off. Since it took so long to get rid of dash bun, the sun had faded, and I wanted the sun up to take on the Starmobile. So I bring in Mittens who sets up the sun, and then parting shots into Nova, and with the sun and a Terra boost, Flamethrower cleanly one-shots Wigglytuff. The Starmobile then comes in and hits a crit Steel Roller, but it barely does any damage, and Nova's Flamethrower half-shots in retaliation. It then tries to confuse us, but Charizard breaks through and kills with a second Flamethrower. This brings us to the False Dragon, a formidable opponent for my fire types. So of course I start with Mr. Mittens, who gets a free fake out for Small Chip. Mittens then outspeeds and hits a hard Thunder Punch, but it retaliates with an Aqua Tail, leaving Mittens in the red. This might be the first time Mittens has gotten so low, so you know it's a pretty serious fight. Since Mitten does outspeed, he can parting shot into Skellyurge, and because of the attack drop, he can tank an Aqua Tail with green HP. A second Aqua Tail brings Coco down to just 3 HP though. Holy crap, that was really close. And a Shadow Ball fails to trigger phase 2. Well, we need to switch, so I bring in Nova, who thankfully outspeeds and finishes off the battle with a Dragon Breath. Phase 1 almost got some of my best team members killed, so it's time to lock in for phase 2 and stop mucking around. So I set up a Sunny Day to weaken Dondozo's water type moves, and a takedown from Greedent and a Thunder Punch from Mittens brings it into the yellow. But the longer this fight goes on, the more chances Dondozo gets to kill someone. So I parting shot into Sabrina, who could finish it off with a quick Solar Beam. But this isn't over, as Tatsugiri reveals itself to be the real Titan. So I immediately parting shot into Nova, and an air slash and a few takedowns brings Tatsu to half HP. But it does end up knocking out Greedent. Nova can bring it somewhat low, but now Greedent isn't around to tank hits, so after missing an air slash, Nova is forced to tank a Dragon Pulse, leaving him in the red. So I have to bring Mittens back out. A fake out brings Tatsu into the red, and a parting shot brings in Coco, who takes a Muddy Water, and again isn't able to finish the battle off as Shadow Ball leaves it on like, I don't know, 10 HP. So I bring in Mittens one last time, so he can hit a priority fake out to safely finish the False Dragon Titan. That was a very annoying and stressful set of battles, but we got through it with 0 deaths. My fire types have slain their last Titan, which means we have one last battle before the Elite Four. Eri isn't as terrifying as the False Dragon, but she still has the potential to destroy my whole team, so I needed to come up with a plan. Eri leads with Toxicroak, and I lead with Mr. Mittens, who intimidates it, and after taking a Brick Break, parting shots, bringing the frog to -2 attack as I bring in Boots. He sets up an agility and then a sword dance, while staying healthy with leftovers. And this is where I'd like to introduce you all to Physical Charizard. With the boost to his attack and speed thanks to a baton pass from Boots, Nova is able to one-shot Eri's whole team with acrobatics. It's nice to have an easy battle right before the Elite Four. Rika is a super tricky matchup. Not only does she use ground types, which can hit my fire type super hard with super effective moves, she also has a sturdy dog fan and a dog trio that's extremely fast and has Rock Slide. So to make sure we even stand a chance of winning, I have to start with George, who can set up a Stealth Rocks. I did have to risk his life to a crit, but he lives in Earth Power and I can bring in Mr. Mittens, who is able to set up a Sunny Day. Mittens then safely parting shots into Nova, who could one-shot Wishcash with a Solar Beam. Dogfed was next, but thanks to Stealth Rocks breaking it sturdy, another Solar Beam can one-shot. Doug Trio was another big threat, but with a held Choice Scarf, Nova can actually outspeed and take it out with one more Solar Beam. And thanks to a crit, Solar Beam also one-shots Camerupt, leaving Rika with Clodsire, and since she turns it into a pure ground type with her Terra Orb, Solar Beam is now super effective. But it's still very bulky and lives with yellow HP. I assumed she was going to go for Protect here, so I switched it to Roy. But no, it went for Liquidation, which does barely tickle Roy thanks to the sun, and a Terra boosted Eruption can finish it off. After slapping a cheeky Choice Scarf on Coco and spamming Terra boosted Torch Dogs, Poppy is easily defeated, but I mean, the Steel user was never going to be an issue. As for Larry, I didn't have any real kind of strategy, I just was gonna go in and hit hard. I lead with Boots, who sets up a Sword Stance as Tropius is kind enough to set up the sun for us. I then Terra Boots to change Terra Blast to a fire type move, which one-shots the Banana Dinosaur. Staraptor lowers our attack, so I switch to using the more powerful but less accurate Pyro Ball. which ends up critting, getting the one shot. Oricorio then fades to a single Terror Blast, and so far this is going great. But Altaria resists our fire type moves, so we have to switch to using Bounce, which cleanly two-shots the dragon. This leaves Larry with his Ace Flamigo. Sadly, our luck does run out as Flamigo avoids a Pyro Ball, allowing it to hit a nasty close combat. Boots thankfully hangs on, and conveniently close combat lowered its defenses, which means Terror Blast should now be a free KO, without having to worry about any misses. So far we've beaten 3 members of the Elite Four with 0 deaths, but Hassel is usually where I struggle most. I lead with Boots, who is able to set up a Swords Dance as Noivan brings him down to half HP with Super Fang. Thankfully, outside of Super Fang, its damage output is pretty weak, so Boots can get to +4 while still remaining at yellow HP. I then pass those attack boosts over to Nova, and with a Hell Choice Scarf, Nova outspeeds and one-shots Hazel's entire team. Boy, it's been a while, but we beat Hassel with 0 deaths, all thanks to boosts at Physical Charizard. Well, it's finally time to see if my fire-type starters can become champions of Paldea. Mr. Mitten's Wool's Aspratha are pretty hard, so he could safely set up the Sun, and then take it out with a Darkest Lariat. I don't want Mittens to eat a Body Press from Avalog, so I switch into Nova, who can then one-shot it with a Flamethrower. King Gambit is then baited in because it knows Stone Edge, so Nova can outspeed and Flamethrower it for another easy one-shot. Veluza is out next, but a Darkest Lariat from Mr. Mittens can easily take it out, although it did leave him low, so I'm forced a parting shot into Nova, who can handle the Go-Go with a couple of Flamethrowers. This leaves Gita with her Ace Glamora, who has quite the dangerous moveset for my fire types. Nova can't really risk staying in here, so I bring in George on a Sludge Wave, which chunks him for half of his health and poisons him. I then make a fatal misplay as I misclick Mach Punch instead of Drain Punch, and it doesn't even come close to one-shotting, and George is sadly killed by an Earth Power. This was a super dumb way to lose such a powerful member of the team, but my mistakes don't end there as I bring in Roy. I was pretty confident that despite Glamora resisting, a Terra boosted Eruption would be enough to finish it off, but Glamora tanks it with red HP and then retaliates with a Terra Blast, which one-shots Roy for the 3rd death of the run. This one doesn't hurt as much as George because Typhlosion, at least stat-wise, is just a discount Charizard, but still, really stupid plays on my end. The reliable Nova can come out and finish the battle, but I swear to God I'll beat her one day with 0 deaths. With my fire types becoming champions, we now only have a few battles before we have to take on the ultimate threat. Arven is super easy as we just use Boots to set up attack and speed boost, and Baton Pass into King, who can easily one-shot his whole team with Brick Breaks and Earthquakes. And well, I just ran it back against Clavel and Penny, bringing us to the final showdown against Nemona. I start things off with Mr. Mittens, who sets up the Sun, and parting shots into Coco. Lycanroc survives a Torch Song, but it's at -2 attack, so its Stone Edge does barely any damage, and after taking it out, Coco is now at +2 special attack. And well, from here the fight is extremely cruisy. The only Pokemon we fail to one-shot is Goodra, but it doesn't have the damage output to put us in any trouble, so we continue sweeping our whole team, leading us to the final battle against AI Sada. Since this was the final battle and an end to my adventure with my fire starters, I wanted to finish this off with the one I started this adventure with, so I lead with Choice Scarf Coco. Sada leads the battle with Slitherwing, and Coco burns it up with 2 Torch Songs, which means he's now at +2 special attack. Next is Brute Bonnet, but this thing has Sucker Punch, so I Terra Coco to get rid of his Ghost typing, and Torch Song one-shots it. Sandy Shocks then also gets one-shot, but then Flutter Mane enters the battle, and this thing is so fast that it outspeeds Coco even with his Choice Scarf, and kills him with a Power Gem. Losing Coco so close to the end really sucks, and now I don't have a great answer to this thing. Well, that's what I thought. But I bring in Boots, who outspeeds, but misses a Pyro Ball. He tanks a Power Gem though, and opens his eyes on the next turn, and a Pyro Ball straight up Okos. Screamtail is tankier, so it lives a Pyro Ball, but its damage output is pretty pathetic, so Boost survives a Zen Headbutt with red HP, and another Pyro Ball takes it out. This leaves Sada with our final Paradox monster, Roaring Moon. And Boots has served us well, but I need a safe switch, so he lands a nasty Pyro Ball, half-shotting it, and then he's killed by an Earthquake. I then bring out Mittens, who hits a Fake Out and Darkest Lariat, before dying to another Earthquake. This means I can bring in King for free, who survives an Earthquake and finishes the battle off with a Brick Break. And with that, we've beaten a Pokemon Scarlet hardcore Nuzlocke using only fire type starters.